Did you already assess what attachment style I have? Or were you still juggling? I know, I'm just trying to see if you remember what it is.
What do you mean if I remember?
If you remember, I don't know.
I in my opinion, and again, it's not something that is always that obvious, right?
Okay.
Because you really don't know somebody's attachment style until they're properly triggered, right?
Okay.
But just given a couple of things you've told me, I would say you lean avoidant. I don't know that you're completely avoidant, but I would say you lean in the direction.
What do you mean I'm completely avoidant? What does that mean?
I said, I don't know that you're completely avoidant.
Okay. So
I said, you definitely lean avoidant, I would say.
Why do you say I lean avoidant?
I mean, through different conversations we've had, one thing you've told me that for me is like one of the bigger things is that when you break up with somebody, never speak to them again.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out like if that's avoidant or just efficient. Like,
well, I mean, a secure person couldn't. I mean, look, I think that in most breakups, it's really good to have a break and not speak to the person because it's kind of hard, right? Like that can be hard to navigate too. Okay. But if you have the capacity to completely shut down that whole experience and never need to talk to the other person again, that leans into avoidance.
I'm glad you brought that up because when I'm thinking about it, right, I can see why someone would I'm going to use the word misplace that behavior towards avoidant, because the question needs to be asked why I did that or why I do that. Right. And it's not because I don't want to deal with the emotional back and forth, or I don't want to, I don't know how to cope. Right. It's not, it's nothing like that. Right. There's two reasons why if I break up with somebody, I never speak to them again. Okay. Reason number one is that 99% of all my relationships, I'm the one who broke up with the person. Right. No. And then I'm sure hey, hold on. Let's slow it down. All right. And there's a reason for that, right? I've always been very assertive in how I move through life, right? So if I'm in a relationship with somebody, I've always tried to be very conscious of the things that I want, but where I failed is what I wanted or what I want in a relationship. Oftentimes I manifested in my own head through the person that might not have even had the capacity for the things that I wanted. Right. And while being in the relationship with them, and I discovered that, okay, everything that I imagined about the person, who they were, I thought they were supposed to be for me. I realized how false it was. And that's a fault on my part. But when I came to that realization, the idea of who that person was just an idea. So when I separated, there wasn't somebody that I could necessarily go back and connect to for any particular reason in the future. Because in my mind, the person I thought they were in my head doesn't even exist. So what am I really returning to? Right. That was an issue that I was dealing with. And I think I've resolved in multiple ways. Right. The second reason is I've witnessed a lot of people have a lot of lingering baggage coming into new relationships, partly because of exes or, other types of trauma they've experienced in other relationships that they should have let go, a long time ago. And I went the other extreme where I said, you know what, I'm going to give my new partner the gift of a clear runway. Right. So when I meet somebody new, they don't have to worry if my ex is in my DMs or if my ex is still trying to knock on my door. Cause I've had instances like that when, the very same, I've had exes show up in my house with lingerie, right? I've had that happen, right? I've had exes. There was one time I was, what happened? I used to live in this luxury building in Brooklyn, and I was out with somebody I was dating, and we were out for a drive heading towards, I think we were going to the beach or something like that. And we were driving, And then I get a call because in the building, the reason why I mentioned the luxury building is when you push a number on for my apartment unit, it goes to my cell phone, right? So I'm in the car and it rings through my car audio, and I have my lady to my right, and then I just pick up because I didn't know who it was, who's at my door. So I'm thinking it's packages or something like that. And sure enough, it's my ex, right? And I'm like, hello? And then they're like, oh, hey, are you around? And mind you, my lady's to my right. I'm like, and she's thinking, who's this woman, right? And I'm just like,
hearing the whole conversation.
She's hearing the whole conversation. But I knew I had nothing to hide, so I was playing it anyway. But she was like, oh, I was in the neighborhood. I figured I'd stop by and, maybe we could talk and this. And I was just like, and I had to be very clear. I'm with somebody else right now. Right. We are no longer together. And she was like, oh, and then the lady I was with was just like, right. But that was just a freak accident because the person obviously knew she didn't live that far from me and she was in the neighborhood and so on and so forth. But in normal circumstances, a lot of people open the door a lot more. So those are the two reasons why I don't communicate with my exes.
That doesn't make you any less avoidant.
Hey. Let me live. Okay.
You see, do you remember what I said in the beginning where we take our emotions and we make story out of them and we justify why we do the things we do? Okay. That is what you just did. I mean, essentially. And I'm not saying that you not speaking to your exes necessarily makes you avoidant, but what I am saying is there is other versions of reality where you can have the uncomfortable conversations with somebody that comes along with a breakup, right? And you can still have other relationships and not completely discard what, the year you just spent with somebody by never speaking to them again, It's a possibility.
I don't want to deal with my emotions. I don't want to do it. No. The other thing I was going to say is that avoidants soothe on their own, right? Okay. They deal with emotional issues on their own. They don't seek out advice. I'm not saying that, not that they don't seek out advice, but they don't necessarily seek out being calmed by another human, I definitely don't seek out to be calmed by other people, but like I did take the attachment assessment. Now I don't know how accurate it is, but it put me in the secure category. Right? Now, to your point, right? Attachment styles are a spectrum, yes, right? And a quadrant. So I was labeled as secure, right? But like, to your point, like there's like a dash of avoidance, just a little Salt Bay dash of avoidant, right? So you are accurate in that sense, but the large majority of how I move is in a secure manner, according to the test. Yeah. Maybe I took it wrong. And
also it's important to know that attachment styles, you can move along the spectrum throughout life. It can change. You can move towards security. You can move away from security depending on what's going on in your life and the partner that you have.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, you could be secure and be in a relationship with somebody who's highly avoidant and become anxious as a result of that, because avoidance breeds anxiety and anxiety breeds avoidance, right? So same if you're secure and you're in a relationship with somebody who's highly anxious, you can become avoidant, right? Because naturally you're going to be like, all right, chill. Well, you don't need to talk this much, or we don't need to like hang out this much or whatever.
To your point, one thing that I did note, well, I've always known about myself, right? I'm sipping a truth serum here. All right. I did know that, like, if I'm in a relationship and I get in like an argument or disagreement that rubbed me the wrong way, right? My natural inclination is, she's not going to hear from me for a while. Right? Not like, I don't know what it is. It's more so like, I don't want to say it like this. It's going to sound egotistical. right? Like a part of me is kind of like, I'm not going to like award you with my presence after doing or saying something like that.
I mean, avoidants are known to have narcissistic tendencies.
Hey, listen, hey. Why am I dropping the bomb on myself?
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense because, again, like if you're leaning towards avoidant, you need space to kind of figure, I mean, you need space, yeah, to deal with it on your own, because that's what avoidants do. Avoidants deal with things on their own. And anxious people need to resolve immediately because they're anxious and they're like worried that the relationship's going to end. They don't know how to give things time. They don't know how to give things space. Yeah. And they, they need immediate resolution, and what the worst thing that happens is avoidance. Okay. If you know you're anxious and if you know you're avoidant, you can speak to these things, right? Like if you're in a relationship, you can speak to this. You can say, look, I'm the type of person, like it'll freak me out if you go cold on me for a week. Please don't do that. The avoidant person to be like, well, I do that. So I'm going to let you know that I'm going to take a week, and take some time. I've said
that to my partners. Like once I've gotten real conscious of how I am, like sometimes they'll ask me, they're like, how are you like in an argument or when you're like angry, like, do you get really angry? Do you have anger issues? Like people will ask me that question. I welcome the question. And my response is like, usually, when I'm angry, if I remove myself from a particular situation. I'm not the type to be like, trying to go toe to toe with you and go into this back and forth bickering match. Like even sometimes in public, like when people are just like talking like smack and just doing all kinds of nonsense, like if I have to like physically fight somebody, it's because I was physically threatened. Right. But if it's like, just like somebody's just yapping, I'm just like, yo, I'm not even gonna deal with you. Like, this is stupid, right? That's how I am. And that's how I am outside relationships, and that's how I am in relationships, because I don't like to like, add toxicity into my headspace, because how I move through the world will be, dislodged if I bring that into so I'm very protective of my headspace.
Yeah. Yeah, avoidants typically are conflict averse.
God,
I'm just.
You don't know me, woman.
I'm just saying. So it makes a lot of sense, but
oh God, I hate proving you right when I'm trying to prove you wrong. You're like, yeah, that's avoidant. Damn it.
But what I wanted to say before was that
I'm really annoyed right now. I'm just being honest, because it's like I'm thinking I'm speaking very like highly of myself, and I'm thinking I'm like being very like, I proved my point, and you're like, yeah, you just proved my point. I was like,
yeah, I mean, I've been saying this the whole time. You're like, every time you're like, nah, I'm not avoidant. You're like, but
in one conversation, you turned me into a baby. Jesus. Anyway,
wouldn't be the first time.
Hey. We're gonna cut that out.